I am Todd from GoodCleanFunLife.com.
And I'm Tony Russo, no relation. All sorts of fun stuff this week. You just missed a precious. I'm just going to try to stop hitting the table. I didn't get a chance to set up my camera stand, so every time I breathe, the table shakes a little bit. You missed my rant before the show about how much I hate Comcast. The short version is a lot. So skipping just past that, we're going to talk about some of the good stuff, some of the fun stuff, and some more important controversies even than how bad Comcast blows and how fucking retarded the Wycomico County government, Maryland government is.
There you go. So not holding back any hate right out of the gate. That's
yeah. You know what? And if you want to know, call me. I'll tell you. I'll tell you all one at a time. But I just don't want to take over the show with just cursing at the
Right.
Imagine like someone tunes in halfway through and it's just me just swearing and spitting and talking about being raped by Comcast.
Right. Until they get tired.
Yeah, right. So let's get right over that and get to what you got to, because you got to fun stuff last weekend. What'd you get to?
Yeah, last week was you mentioned before the show. It's summer's here. It's the start of the season. Last week was like our first thing out of the gate with a number of events. Actually found us across the bridge. We rented some new equipment because we're testing, always testing out some things. I should mention that right now I'm not doing the split screen.
Oh, all right.
I have some hang-ups with that. It's just I don't know if I'm just terrible or lazy or what, but anyway, we're working on the production value, but I really feel like this live stuff that we've been doing forever now,
yeah,
is very much important. And I rented this piece of equipment that I've been dying to rent, and they actually have a new version of it. But it allows you to stream live through your camera. So I mean, you've always been able to do it on your phone or whatever with FaceTime, or make a video and upload it directly. But there's more and more apps, and we've talked about Periscope versus Meerkat and that sort of thing that are coming out, where you're like, it's this idea of streaming live, and I love that idea, and I've been driving that at that for 4 years. I realized my Ustream account, when we started the podcast even, is now like 4 years old. It hasn't improved any.
Well, and it's interesting for us early adopter types. Although I've got to admit, with Periscope, I think I'm the first. I think that's the first gadget that I wasn't way ahead of the curve on.
Yeah.
And it's just because I'm freaking exhausted. But I called PayPal the other day because I had a PayPal issue, and apparently I've been a member of PayPal for so long that the guy was like actually impressed. He's like, "You've been a member since," I don't know if it was 2005 or 2008 or 2006, but it was. I was one of the first million people, let's say, to get on. And he's like, "Oh, thank you so much for staying with us." I'm like, "Well, you're the bank of the future. It's not like, it's not a loyalty thing. You guys are the only ones who are doing this. You know what I mean?"
Yeah. It's not that I'm a big fan. It's just that it makes sense and I understand it. Exactly,
and he was young enough that it could very well have been like that he didn't know PayPal was that old kind of thing, like.
Well, so this it was a cool piece of equipment, and interestingly, in the industry, from what I understand, is the drones have really kind of driven the ability to stream high quality, simultaneous, like zero latency. So there's no lag, because you have people who are trying to operate the drone through the camera,
right,
and that sort of thing. So I mean, they're working on like short distance broadcast stuff. But this the short of it is this little box that I've rented. I was going through Wi-Fi, and that turned out, I think, to be a big problem. But I think in the future you're going to be able to do it through your 3G or 4G,
because the Wi-Fi is on Comcast, and Comcast blows, I think.
because and apparently we lost the whole net neutrality argument. So yeah, no, it was a great. idea. It's just not quite there yet. Periscope for me is not quite there yet either, because there's a couple things about it. I want to be able to shoot the proper way landscape, and I want to be able to throw some things in at the beginning or something like that, some pre-production stuff. But and then they also don't have it for Android yet. So they've been slow to getting it on Android. And I don't know how the latest controversies that you actually mentioned before the show are going to affect the growth of these new mobile apps.
The short version is you can't keep everybody out. Like if you want to have a sporting event and you want to say we're going to throw you out, if you want to bring, you have to come, you can come to this event, but you can't bring your phone. You'll have yourself an empty stadium, sir, and you'll deserve it.
Right.
Network television, and also mostly owned by Comcast. Let's be fair. Is a dying thing. If it's not a dead thing, it's a dying thing. And you generally are going to get what you pay for. Now, as a member of the newspaper business, which is also a dying thing, people want their stuff for free, and it's complicated. They don't want to pay for the newspaper, but they want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to make a choice. Like just as newspapers have been for the most part killed, network television cannot be that far behind. Nobody wants to wait till the 6 o'clock news. Nobody wants to pay per view. When nobody wanted to buy a newspaper, people are like, well, you got to change with the technology. Now nobody wants to pay per view. What are you going to do now?
Right. Yeah. Well, and the controversy that we're talking about, in fact, somebody brought it up to me. The GoPros are not even allowed in baseball stadiums. And, it's just kind of ridiculous because that's, specifically a camera, but, the camera on your phone is maybe as good with direct link to the outside world. And, so concert venues, the big thing, right, that I saw was the Manny Pacquiao.
Right.
Those two old guys, old little guys, like running around in circles. People were live streaming that through Periscope, and it was like a huge pay-per-view thing, like very expensive, which is probably why I've never gotten into boxing, because I'm not going to pay to watch two people beat the hell out of each other. It's
not just prohibitively expensive. It's also there's no guarantee that it's not going to be boring or over. I think Mike Tyson killed it because he had the one. I don't know if you remember. I believe it was I guess it must have been in the 90s, but it could have been in the late 80s. He had a fight, and it was a huge pay-per-view, and he knocked the guy out in like a minute and a half, and people were paying $75, and then he stood up, he knocked this guy out, and they're like, okay, thanks for your $75. Have a nice day.
and the show before the show leading up to it was 90 minutes of evaluation, and
right,
and it boiled down to 90 seconds of action. Yeah, so I mean it'll be interesting. The one comment I saw, of course, concerts is a big thing, and I've already done that locally, and anybody around here is going to appreciate stuff being sent out by anybody. But
right.
Then you get to that level where it's like, oh, you're selling concert tickets, and that's actually where artists make money. And you got people like Jack White, who are out. Jack White formerly from the White Stripes. He has this thing where he doesn't want people recording his shows. And it's more of like an artist stance that you're not enjoying it if you are simultaneously recording it. You need to be there in the moment. That's definitely an interesting take. My thought is always like, I wish everybody would stop recording it, because I'm recording it and I'm a professional. And right. If you want to see it, you should look at professional work. Well, but there is something else too. Was Katy Perry, of all people, she equated it to seeing, the the lights of cell phones out in the crowd is the modern day clapping. It's it's the show of appreciation, or the lighters lit. It's people who are in the moment and they feel like they need to capture it, and they want to capture it from their perspective, and in whether they're going to do anything with it or not doesn't matter.
There used to be a band called the Grateful Dead. They solved that problem by not being greedy pricks.
Yeah.
They said, yeah, record it. And they did it for so long that the market was like that it became like, oh, this guy doesn't make good recordings. Like there was a cottage industry about who made good Dead tapes and who made bad Dead tapes. And then when they came back on tour and they needed the cash, they said, yeah, you know what, you can record from this area and it's going to cost you a little bit more to sit in this recording area. Right? And it's the same thing. And for the Grateful Dead, it was like, well, people just go out and buy our albums. Like they've heard all the songs, but they also want the album.
Yeah.
For musicians in the middle, what I see as the most reasonable is to live stream it yourself.
Yeah.
You can live stream. You can do as what you call it, Louis C.K.
I was just gonna say that, like, similar to what Louis C.K. did, just do it and give it out and let people take it on their own.
Nobody's gonna stop going to concerts because you're not going to concert to hear the music. You're going for the concert experience.
Right.
But I would watch. I gotta be honest. I like music. I haven't watched a concert video from end to end since I was a child. I think like Alice Cooper may have been the last concert I saw end to end. It's just that it doesn't grip me that way. It's the kind of thing where you want the experience.
Sure.
And they'd be better off though selling their own bootlegs, because they've got the best recording equipment. They could stream it immediately at zero cost to them, or practically zero cost to them. And why would I pay you $5 for a crappy version when for $7.50 I could have an album quality version and I can download it before Jack White is even out of the venue?
Right. Well, and it's one actually. And then I was talking to a buddy of mine who does consulting for like Mercy High School, and he's also been involved with Towson Athletics, and and talking about the lead up to, like, in sports and collegiate sports, and obviously professional too. You're watching the live Twitter feed of what's going on. You're not going to the newspaper to read the box scores. You have the box scores, as it's happening live. The Twitter's, at the head of the game. Then you get a live stream from Periscope or something like that 4 minutes later. But it's all kind of similar. And if you're doing something like recruiting for a high, like a school or something like that, and you're getting ready to go to a championship game, you want to build up the championship game, because you might lose the opportunity to recruit on being in the championship game because you lost, and nobody wants to talk about the loss. But if it's live, you don't know what's going to happen, and you can capitalize on it more. So
the difficulty that baseball has, I have an excellent example. I pay for MLB.com.
Right.
It's like $150 a year or something like that. But don't tell them I split with a bunch of people. We all have the same passcode. Fuckers. So anyway, I pay for MLB, and I like to watch the Mets, who aren't terrible this year, which is kind of cool. But they black out games that I've paid for. I can't ever see the Mets versus the Nationals. I can't ever see the Mets versus the Orioles, and I can't ever see the Mets versus – sometimes I can't see the Mets versus the Phillies, depending upon what's on the Comcast cable channel here. Now, I don't have cable. It's not that I don't want to pay for cable. It totally fucking is that I don't want to pay for cable. It's not that I don't want to go to my house and watch it. It's that I can't watch it from my house. And so I listen to it on the radio, but that's the problem. I would pay a pirate streamer a small amount, or I would watch it for free if I could And that's the hurdle. That's the hurdle that they have to get over.
Yeah.
They have to, like, the reason that there's a blackout is because MASN, or whatever the
network is,
sports, the Baltimore Sports Network, or the Western Shore Sports Network, they have like an exclusivity contract, but it doesn't matter, because if you're not watching anymore, then no one's getting any money.
Yeah.
They have to redo the share agreement. One of the things that always bothers me is when I can see a game, they black out the commercials. And that, I mean, I'm happy to not have to put up with one more fucking car commercial in my life. It just boggles my mind that they would. Why would you take Ford's money and not show it on the internet?
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, what? But the whole advertising model.
I'm here, and it's like, the Washington Nationals are sponsored by, Jerry's downtown Ford dealership. I don't know. I don't know why I wouldn't want to know about Jerry's downtown Ford dealership in Washington, D.C. in case I was ever in Washington, D.C. and wanted to buy a Ford. I guess. I don't know.
It could happen. And it's interesting because of, like what is happening out there now is what people are used to seeing things right here, right now. They understand that you have to pay for it. Like, the only thing that's keeping me tethered to cable right now is, well, actually two things. They play the shell game because, obviously we use a lot more internet than we do cable.
Right.
But our internet is $75 and our cable is $25. But if we got rid of cable, or if we were a cable family and used a little bit of internet, our cable would be $75.
Right.
And the internet would be $25. I don't know how they figured it out, but they do. But it's the Redskins. It's the my godforsaken Redskins are the only thing that are keeping me, tethered to it. That, and well, it's only $25 more. I mean, it's frustrating and ridiculous, and I don't know.
Now, but you would always get to see the Redskins. I mean, I see the Redskins every Sunday.
Right.
With an antenna.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, antenna is good, but not great in a 100-year-old house with 100-year-old trees. But
Oh no! There's a digital antenna that you buy. You put on top of your television, just like your old-timey rabbit ears, and you pick up all the television stations.
All right, I'm going to do that then.
Well, you don't have to do that, but that's what I do, and I'm
going to do that.
Because every nickel I can take out of Comcast's pocket is a nickel for freedom and victory and American pie.
Yes. Speaking of freedom, victory, and American pie, that sounds about like what Cambridge must be like.
Yeah. Yes, I was at Cambridge this week. Lots of fun. We are already almost out of time, so I'm going to blow through as quickly as I can. Cambridge is just a really, really cool place, and they shut down the street. And I got to see Justin. I got to see the guys from RAR. One of the things that it's funny, because Brian Brushmiller from Burley Oak and I talked about this maybe 5 years ago. Talked about this idea of, you go to these beer festivals and nobody there there's nobody there who knows about the beer, and nobody there who cares about it. They're just volunteers pouring.
Oh, right.
Not the case anymore. It's almost cliche now, like, to have a volunteer. Like, everybody is. These brewers have hired sales guys. Lots of brewers have sales guys. The guy from Third Wave, his name is Toby. I told him I'm going to start charging him for being his own personal photographer. Every time I show up at a place, he's there too.
Right.
And people come out and they talk about their beer, and they talk intelligently about it, and they make friends and they make fans. And that I wrote 3 blogs about it. The one blog that's out now is really kind of why it's okay to talk about beer as a way to make money. I was talking to the Patrick Fanning owns the High Spot,
right,
and he was the second big promoter of craft beer in Cambridge. The first was the guy who owned Ocean Odyssey, and he was promoting craft beer in the early 90s.
Yeah.
He was promoting craft beer before Wild Goose even opened in '89 or whatever.
Oh.
So he's a huge fan of it. But Patrick Fanning and his partner Brett Summers, and I was talking to Brett, and I'm like, so why'd you what's the deal? Why'd you get into it, right? And he's hemming and hawing, and what he wanted to say was it just made sense. It looked like a good, sustainable way to make money. It will look like a good investment. But people here make money and good investment, and they're like, oh, you're one of those beer mercenaries. You're going to ruin it for everybody. And it's just not true. It's not true. This is a restaurant that charges a little bit more. And for the price of a little bit more, you can get beers that you literally can't get anyplace else. You can always get at least 2 local beers. And then they have beers that I haven't even heard of, sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is cool, which is what the story is about. So you can read my story at shorecraftbeer.com/Tony Russo's State of the Beer, and see all about that. I got to, as I said, speak with Justin a little bit about the things at Burley, and I will be up at Burley next weekend on the 16th. They're having a home building event. They're raising money for Habitat for Humanity, I believe. I'm going to be out there and take pictures and do a blog because I haven't gotten to Burley yet, and I just did Assateague, Assawoman Bay Brewery.
Right. The Assawoman Bay Brewery. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, not Assateague, Assawoman.
Assawoman, right. Jason.
I don't know.
Weissman, at the 45th Street Tap House. I was in that place. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
They're probably going to have it open sooner than you think. Certainly, they really expect to have it open for the season. And it's in the building that used to contain Shallow Waters.
Right.
And they're going to rename that, and it's going to be called Assawoman Brewery, and they're going to redesign it, and it looks cool. I mean, inside was literally apart. There was no ceiling. There was, demolition detritus on the floor, stuff like that. So,
yeah.
So that was thing number one. It is craft beer festival time now. There are more and more festivals. You can probably go to a festival a week and drive under an hour between now and November, maybe.
Yeah.
So a couple of things I want to mention in the pluggy sense is that next Friday morning, if you tune into WSCL, if you're not tired of listening to me yet, I'll be on WSCL talking about craft beer, its history, and its economic effects on the Eastern Shore.
Nice.
I was talking to Doug about this.
You drop the F-bomb on WSCL.
I think I can, but I'm going to try not to. As long as they don't ask me any direct questions about Comcast, we should be fine. But I was talking to Doug about it, and it's kind of scary. People really listen to me, and like, I could say whatever I want, and no one's going to contradict me. There's no one else doing this.
Right.
Because there's no money in it. I'm doing it for free.
Right.
But I said I was telling Doug, I'm like, I essentially go places, repeat what you tell me, and people clap. And I had a great outing.
The opener is going to be a little bit something like this. Here we're at WSCL with Tony Russo, who wrote the book on craft beer on the Eastern Shore.
Yes, I've only heard that about 14 times so far. It's a cliche that never gets uncliched. But they bumped us up. I don't know if they heard about me or whatever, but we were only supposed to be on for half an hour. They bumped us up to an hour. So
that's awesome.
And then on Memorial Day weekend, I will be at Browse About Books, which is across the street from Dogfish Head, where they will be having a craft beer event.
Okay.
Dogfish Head is sponsoring it. I think I hope to Christ there's going to be beer, because I'm going to be in Rehoboth Beach on Memorial Day Saturday.
I'm sure there will be beer.
The event starts at 3. I'm going to try to get there at 10:30 so I can find some parking within
5 hours.
Yeah, within a 3-hour walk of the. But I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's cool that again that I get these. Increasingly, all I do is I say, "Hey, I know about beer," and people are like, "Okay, cool, come talk to us."
Right.
And then other people are like, "Oh yeah, he does. He seems to know about beer. Come talk to us." And every time I do a talk, I get 3 more. So I'll also be in Ocean Pines on June 10th, but I'll remind you about that when it gets closer. Not June 10th. June 10th is my wife's birthday. It's around that date though. Maybe the 6th. And so doing all these talks is a lot of fun. And it's a good way to just kind of, give people the words to use, because a lot of that's always been my forte, even in the newspaper business. People don't know what to say, and I give them words to use, and then they can pretend the words are theirs. I don't care, as long as they're not saying stupid things. And I'm here to help you say fewer stupid things. My name is Tony Russo.
Making the world a better place.
Or just making the stupidity a little more tolerable. And so what do you guys got coming up this weekend?
Well, actually, we are going to be, is it this weekend, the Burley Ben Fest? We will be there. That's the 16th.
Correct.
Is that this coming weekend?
That is.
Yes, for the Habitat for Humanity. So actually, getting back in with the crew and underway, going to be emceeing that, and Natalie out taking pictures and all of that good stuff, and maybe doing something for Habitat. And then we'll be bouncing around. We got more and more bars and restaurants and hotel, motel, service industry stuff that we're doing down here and across the way. So I mean, exciting stuff is afoot for good, clean fun. And interestingly, we could almost do a whole nother podcast with Natalie talking about the Berlin Chamber and just seeing what goes on with the Berlin Chamber has been pretty enjoyable. Well, not necessarily enjoyable, entertaining. Entertainment is not always just straight enjoyment. It's.
When I was at the Bayside Gazette, my boss Elaine Brady was on the Chamber of Commerce, and the stories are always just fucking astounding. It's just like they're grown-ups, right? They have jobs, they own businesses.
Yeah.
It's okay. I don't have to go. I don't even have to cover them, which is even better.
Yeah.
But that's all I got for now. How about you?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, may Todd give you the sense to live in a small town.
We'll see you next week at happy hour.
Cheers.